The church was silent, filled with the soft hum of whispered prayers and muffled sobs. A polished black casket rested at the front, surrounded by flowers and photographs. Among the mourners stood Jonathan Harris, a self-made millionaire known for his towering business empire and cold-hearted decisions. But today, he was just a broken man saying goodbye to his only daughter. His suit, usually crisp and commanding, now hung heavy on his shoulders, his eyes red from sleepless nights and unbearable grief. Just days earlier, he had received the call no parent ever wants. A tragic accident. A fatal fire. His daughter, Emily, gone without warning. He hadn't spoken to her in months. Their last conversation ended in anger. Now it was too late. Or so he thought. As the service came to a close, something strange happened. A soft murmur spread across the room. Jonathan looked up and saw someone standing in the back. A figure with familiar eyes, trembling hands, and the same nervous smile he'd seen since the day she was born. His heart stopped. His breath caught in his throat. It couldn't be. His mind raced. Was he dreaming? Had grief finally pushed him over the edge? He stumbled down the aisle, past the mourners, staring at the girl in disbelief. His knees buckled. Tears welled up. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the millionaire, known for never showing emotion, collapsed in front of everyone, sobbing uncontrollably. Because standing before him was Emily. Alive. But how? Why had he been told she was dead? And why had she stayed away all this time? The truth was more shocking than anything he could have imagined. Something that would change not just his life, but everything he thought he knew about family, trust, and betrayal. Jonathan couldn't move. He just stared at her, his daughter, who was supposed to be gone forever. Emily stood frozen too, unsure if she should smile or cry. Her eyes darted around the room filled with mourners, all now whispering and watching. The air was thick with confusion. The funeral, once somber and still, had turned into a scene of shock and disbelief. How was this possible? Jonathan's mind raced with questions. He had identified the body himself, or at least, that's what they told him. The police, the hospital, the paperwork. Everything had been confirmed. So who had he buried? And why had Emily disappeared without a word? As he reached out to touch her, to make sure she was real, Emily took a small step back. "Dad," she said softly, her voice cracking. "There's something I need to tell you, but not here." Her words were careful, like she was carrying a secret too heavy to say out loud. Jonathan felt a chill crawl up his spine. The past few months flashed through his mind, the endless business meetings, the public image he had to keep, and the quiet pain of losing her without ever making peace. But now, with her standing there, everything he thought he knew was slipping away. Who had lied to him? And why would someone fake his daughter's death? Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she held back. "I didn't know how to come back," she whispered, "not after everything." Her voice shook, filled with guilt and fear. Jonathan tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. The people around them waited, expecting answers. But none came. Because behind her sudden return was a truth so twisted, so deeply buried, that neither of them was ready to face it yet. Later that night, Jonathan sat alone in his study, the fire crackling beside him, casting flickering shadows on the walls. The room that once brought him comfort now felt cold and unfamiliar. On the table in front of him sat a photograph, Emily at age 10, missing her front teeth, grinning from ear to ear. That little girl had grown up, vanished, and somehow returned from the dead. And he still didn't know why. Emily was in the guest room, but she barely said a word after they got back from the funeral. She promised to explain everything tomorrow. But Jonathan couldn't wait. He needed answers now. The silence was unbearable. He replayed her words in his head. Asterisk, I didn't know how to come back. Asterisk, what had she meant? What was she hiding? Meanwhile, across town, a man sat in a parked car outside Jonathan's estate, watching the house through binoculars. His phone buzzed. A message popped up. Asterisk, she made contact. Next steps. Asterisk, he didn't reply. Just stared at the glowing windows, knowing things were spiraling faster than expected. Back inside, Jonathan opened the folder he'd received from the police the day of the supposed accident. He flipped through the documents, the burned ID, the dental records, the photos too grim to look at again. It all pointed to one thing. Someone had gone to great lengths to make him believe his daughter was dead. But why? And who stood to gain from her disappearance? Then there was the money. Weeks before the accident, millions had gone missing from one of his accounts. At the time, he blamed internal fraud. Now he wasn't so sure. Was Emily running from something or someone? And if so, had she just brought that danger back into their lives? The next morning, the sky was gray and heavy with clouds, matching the mood inside the house. Jonathan sat at the kitchen table, his coffee untouched. He hadn't slept. Every creak of the floorboards made him tense up, hoping it was Emily coming down. When she finally appeared, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale, he stood quickly. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. She hesitated, eyes lowered. "Dad, I didn't fake my death. Someone else did. I was being watched, followed, and when I tried to disappear, I didn't know it would go this far." Her voice was shaking, but the fear behind her words was real. Jonathan stared at her, confused. "Who was watching you?" he asked. "And why?" Emily looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Because I found something I wasn't supposed to. Something about your company. About the people you've trusted for years." Jonathan felt his heart pound in his chest. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. She pulled out a flash drive from her coat pocket. "This. It has everything. Names, transactions, blackmail. I found it by accident. But once I saw what was on it, someone tried to silence me." Suddenly, glass shattered in the living room. They both froze. Jonathan rushed in and saw the window broken. A rock lay on the floor, wrapped in a piece of paper. He picked it up and unwrapped the note. It read, "Asterisk, you should have left her buried asterisk." Outside, a black SUV sped away down the road. The silence after the SUV disappeared was deafening. Jonathan locked the doors, pulled the curtains shut, and turned back to Emily. "We need to go to the police," he said. But she shook her head firmly. "Dad, no. You don't understand. Some of them are involved. That's why I ran." Jonathan's stomach dropped. Corruption inside the police? If what Emily was saying was true, the situation was far worse than he thought. He glanced at the flash drive still clutched in her hand. "What exactly is on there?" he asked, his voice low. She took a shaky breath. "Illegal deals, offshore accounts, contracts for work that never existed. But there's more. Someone used your name, forged your signature. It looks like you're the one behind it all." Jonathan's blood ran cold. "What?" Emily nodded. "They're setting you up. That's why they needed me out of the way. I was the only one who could prove you didn't know." Before he could respond, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, heart racing. A distorted voice came through the speaker. "You should have let her go, Mr. Harris. Now you'll both pay." The call ended. Jonathan looked at Emily, his mind spinning. Whoever was behind this wasn't just protecting secrets. They were building a case, preparing to destroy him completely. Then came the second blow. Emily hesitated before speaking. There's something else. I wasn't alone when I disappeared. I had help, someone from the inside. Jonathan narrowed his eyes. Who? She looked away. Uncle Marcus. Jonathan staggered back, his own brother. The man he trusted to run half the company. The betrayal hit like a punch to the chest. The room seemed to spin. Not only was his reputation at risk, but now he couldn't trust his own family. And the worst part, he had no idea who else might be involved. Jonathan stared at Emily, his mind refusing to believe what she just said. Marcus, he whispered, he's your godfather. He was there the day you were born. I know, Emily replied softly. That's why I didn't want to believe it either. But I found emails. Hidden transfers. He helped cover up everything. And the fake reports about my death. He signed off on them. The air in the room grew heavier. Jonathan paced the floor, torn between fury and disbelief. Marcus had been by his side since day one, trusted, respected, and now exposed. Determined to end it, Jonathan and Emily made a plan. They encrypted the data from the flash drive and arranged a meeting with a trusted federal investigator, someone outside the local system. That night, they arrived at a private location, flash drive in hand. As they handed over the evidence, the agents studied them carefully. This is enough to take down half the board, he said, but you'll need protection. Suddenly, the door burst open. Marcus stood there, flanked by two men in suits. I'm disappointed, brother, he said calmly. You should have let the past stay buried. But he didn't know Jonathan had anticipated this. Within seconds, federal agents swarmed in from the shadows. Guns drawn, orders shouted. Marcus and his men were arrested on the spot. Jonathan exhaled deeply for the first time in weeks. It was finally over. Or so he thought. As they drove away in silence, Emily's phone buzzed. One message. No sender. Just 3 words. Asterisk, he wasn't alone, asterisk. Emily's hands trembled. She turned to Jonathan. There's someone else, still out there. Jonathan gripped the wheel tighter, eyes on the road. The danger wasn't gone. It had just changed faces. And the real mastermind might still be watching. Weeks passed. The headlines were everywhere. Asterisk corporate scandal exposes multi-million-dollar fraud. Family betrayal at the heart of Empire Asterisk Marcus, and several board members faced charges. And the investigation continued to uncover years of hidden corruption. Jonathan stepped down from his company, not out of guilt, but to rebuild what truly mattered, his relationship with Emily. They moved to a quieter place just outside the city. No cameras, no boardrooms. Just long talks over morning coffee and late-night walks under open skies. It wasn't easy. Trust had to be earned again. But for the first time in years, Jonathan felt something he hadn't in a long time. Peace. Emily finally explained everything. When she discovered the documents, she turned to Marcus, hoping he'd help her do the right thing. Instead, he betrayed her. She went into hiding, faked her identity, and stayed underground, terrified and alone. The fire that supposedly took her life, a cover-up staged with a body no one ever truly confirmed. Emily had blamed herself, thinking she'd only made things worse by staying silent. But Jonathan reminded her she was the reason the truth came out. As for the final message, asterisk, he wasn't alone, asterisk, it remained a mystery. The authorities believed there was another player behind the scenes, someone smarter, someone still hiding. But for now, life moved forward, cautiously. In the end, the story wasn't just about money, power, or betrayal. It was about a father who almost lost everything, and a daughter who risked everything to make it right. Their story became a quiet reminder that no empire, no matter how big, is worth more than family. And even when everything falls apart, love has a way of bringing the truth to light. And sometimes, the ones we think we've lost come back when we need them most. Emily ran to the window, breath quickening. "They know I'm back," she whispered. Jonathan looked at her, the weight of the danger finally sinking in. He had built an empire, but it seemed that empire had enemies, ones who've killed to keep their secrets buried.